What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's show. Of course, I'll be bringing you all topics regarding the Buffalo Bills, and we're in the off season, of course, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. Rookies have reported to training camp, of course. We'll be getting training camp in a full swing soon, so there'll be much more to talk about, but I wanted to acknowledge a little bit of where the mainstream sports media has the Buffalo Bills as far as the AFC East, and what are they saying about Bills quarterback Josh Allen? It's all right here, right now on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So, as always, it's good to be back. Of course, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode brought to you by 26shirts.com. They have celebrated reaching their $2 million mark for their contributions from their contributions by their avid Bills Mafia fan base. Of course, those that love Buffalo. Of course, I'm recording this episode pre-recorded on 7/16 day, which is always a really fun day on the calendar for Western New Yorkers. Wasn't able to record this episode live this week, but wanted to bring you guys a great episode tonight, Wednesday, 7/17, as you guys will be getting this podcast on Wednesdays. As always, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast is available Wednesdays at 8 live, and you guys can check it out, tune into it on your audio side of things, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. My podcast is available pretty much everywhere, which is really great. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say that they've really enjoyed the fact that they can tune into the show, listen to the show, rather than, of course, taking it in just visually, which they also like. But I like to give people options, and that's a really nice benefit to tuning into the show, is giving people multiple platforms to tune into the show on. So, of course, you guys can still chime in and fire away comments, as when I'm on at 8, I'm sitting here. This is pre-recorded, but I respond to comments when they are provided. So I will respond to those comments in the comments section and get some of your thoughts. Feel free to chime in on what you believe in terms of Buffalo Bills takes, or NFL takes, or whatever it may be. Did get some breaking news right now that Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers, the wide receiver, is looking to go to a new team. He's demanding a trade. The Niners have been trying to keep him, but they've been unsuccessful at doing so. So, of course, that means that he's a goner. Brandon Ayuk is going to be traded to a team, potentially Buffalo. Why not, right? Why not? Depending on the cost. I think that's definitely something that Brandon Beane would have to look into, and it's something that should be considered. This wide receiver by committee approach, I don't have an issue with it, but I know a lot of Bills Mafia members do, and they feel like the Bills could do a lot better at the wide receiver position. Now, to me, there are so many misconceptions within this team right now that I'm really dedicating this podcast to today. That I feel like I needed to address the vast majority of what I have read, the vast majority of what I have heard. And as I get you guys prepared for your fantasy drafts, it's in huge contrast to what I believe and to where I stand in regards to Josh Allen, in regards to a lot of other players that have been talked about by the mainstream media. The mainstream media has been a cancer to our society in so many different ways, politically especially. But this is a sports podcast. I want to get to the sports stuff. I would agree with, anyone's sentiment if they shared this sentiment that I have, that the mainstream media really drudges up a lot in terms of just poor sports takes. And that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I'm dedicating, the next half hour to. And the first question to me, I'm really starting to consider this as a legitimate topic tonight, is whether or not Josh Allen is the most underrated quarterback in the National Football League, in the NFL. And a lot of people would look at that statement and they'd say, "Oh my God, why would you, even put that out there? Why do you believe that Josh Allen is underrated rather than overrated?" Josh Allen is underrated. There are still so many detractors of Josh Allen and his game and what he has done in the last 6 seasons, despite the facts that allude to Josh Allen being one of the best players in the league, the facts that allude to Josh Allen essentially putting the Buffalo Bills on his back. And yeah, there might be bias in my opinion here, but I'll use facts to acknowledge the greatness that this guy has shown over the last 6 seasons. No single player has scored more touchdowns than Josh Allen has in the history of the National Football League. Total touchdowns, no one scored more. Last season, 18 rushing touchdowns. Last season, Buffalo back against the wall, trying to make it into the playoffs as a top seed, and Josh Allen leads the Bills to 6 or 7 straight wins en route to the AFC East title, which was their 4th straight. More on that later as I talk about the next talking point that has been discussed in excess on major sports networks. But Josh Allen is a player that so many teams would love to have, and yet ESPN shows, CBS Sports shows, plenty of other podcasts out there, they like to knock Allen any chance that they can. And so much so that you have former executives reportedly stating that Josh Allen is one of the most overrated players in the NFL. He makes mistakes. He does this, he does that. Whereas Josh Allen, yes, he does make mistakes. He does force the football. He does fumble. But part of what makes Josh Allen great is the fact that he never gives up. He never gives up. Just never say die attitude on any particular play that would lead the Bills to having a guy that just never quits. There's never going to be a moment of quit in that kid. And I really believe that we're at a point as a franchise where Josh Allen is under more pressure, maybe than ever before. And a lot of that has to do with the moment that the Bills made the Stephon Diggs trade, moving on from him, moving on to a point where it puts the onus on Allen to get more done with less on paper. But I'm of the opinion, as I shared last week, that Josh Allen's got a lot of reasons to be excited about the supporting cast. I don't think the supporting cast is terrible. I don't think that the supporting cast is one that is, mediocre. I think Curtis Samuel is a legitimate NFL player, or else he wouldn't be in the league these last few years that he has been, right? I look at Khalil Shakir as a player that took a big step up from last season to the season prior. I take a look at Keon Coleman and those within the league that understand the ability of Allen and how he's so multifaceted and how he is so dynamic, look at Keon Coleman and they say, well, that actually matches up pretty well with what Allen does. Keon Coleman's ability to extend a play, Keon Coleman's ability to go up and get the football. Josh Allen's never really had a receiver like that, whether it was Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs. Diggs couldn't stretch the field anymore. Davis was not a consistent route runner. And Keon Coleman is looked at as a decent route runner, not a speed guy, but a guy that can go up and get the ball and tracks the ball very, very well. And I think that actually matches extremely well with the skill set of Josh Allen. So going into the season, from what I've gathered, it's almost as if people really believe that the only reason Allen has had the success that he has had is because of the players that he had around him, because of guys like Stephon Diggs, because of guys like Gabe Davis. Whereas I look at it as, on the other side of things, Josh Allen has done a lot to make players like Stephon Diggs successful. Josh Allen has done a lot to make guys like John Brown and Cole Beasley successful. Josh Allen has done more than enough to prove his worth in this league as one of the best players in the National Football League. And yet you still have detractors. You still have haters. And maybe he always will have haters until the Buffalo Bills get it done by winning the Super Bowl. Maybe those detractors will always be there, but I would like to think that, just looking at things objectively with substance, look at the production, look at what this guy has done the last 6 years, becoming one of the best players in the National Football League. And from a fantasy football standpoint, Josh Allen's been one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. So I am truly excited to know that this is how Josh Allen is being looked at, because when Josh Allen is looked down upon, that's when we start to see his best. That's when we start to see the best football from him that we can possibly see. So, yes, is Josh Allen the most underrated quarterback in the NFL? I think he is, because if you look at the stats, you'd think that Lamar Jackson, was better than Josh Allen, based on awards, I should say. Whereas Lamar Jackson's a two-time NFL MVP. Josh Allen's never won one. And yet Josh Allen has better numbers in his career than what Jackson has. So right there, that just goes to show you a major award has been given out to Lamar Jackson over how he is perceived as the most valuable player in this league. And yet Josh Allen has been looked at as, well, he's pretty good. He shows that he can be great, but he can't win the big game. Well, what big game has Lamar Jackson won? What game has Jackson entered into as a number one seed and won? He hasn't. So I'm really curious to see what people's perception is post this season. What will they say when Josh Allen is just as successful without Stephon Diggs, potentially more successful, as Josh Allen's another year into the NFL himself? And what will they say? What is left to say about the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills that hasn't already been said? That's already been proven wrong. Just continues, and each season that we're out there cheering on this team, Josh Allen will be the main reason why. And I'd like to think that he is, at this point, with what he has provided to the National Football League, with what he has provided to the Buffalo Bills, what he has provided to just the game. The fact that we are still even having this discussion goes to show you that he has been looked at, he has been looked past, as have the Buffalo Bills. And it goes even deeper than that. I mentioned Allen has been looked past. Buffalo Bills have been looked past, because you go on ESPN Plus or ESPN.com and you see all these chatter talking points of the AFC East and how these analysts look at the AFC East. They believe that the AFC East could be as tough as it's ever been. I don't see that. I don't see what result from last season shows us that the AFC East is going to be even tougher in 2024, 2025. The Patriots are going to be one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the National Football League. The New York Jets are heavily reliant upon a 40-year-old quarterback to show a glimpse of what he was, 3-4 years ago. And yes, Aaron Rodgers, I got a lot of respect for him. He's a two-time, what is he, three-time NFL MVP? He's won the NFL MVP multiple times. I know that. I have respect for his game, but with respect to injury and age, and knowing that, Father Time is undefeated outside of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers is somebody that I think the Jets are putting him in a position that they need him to be as elite as he can possibly be. And I don't know if he can be that guy anymore. I haven't seen that guy, in the last couple years. And realistically, when I take a gander at the Jets themselves, really the only offseason additions that they made that they felt necessary were ones that would allude to the fact that the Jets don't feel secure. They do not feel secure in the upfront protection for Rodgers or any other quarterback that's behind center. And they doubled down on that by adding the amount of offensive linemen that they have this offseason. So if Rodgers doesn't stay healthy this year, it's done. It's over. The career is done. The Jets made a huge mistake, and it was all for nothing. This is really make or break, I think, and the pressure's on the New York Jets to not only surround Rodgers with talent, but to rely on Aaron Rodgers as heavily as they are. I think that could be a mistake. And he's not getting any younger. He's 1 year older and 1 year removed away from a devastating injury that, they said that he could come back during the season, but it was really only trying to come back to the team if they were in the playoff hunt, and they were far and away from that. So a lot of work has to be done with the New York Jets. Now, don't get me wrong, Miami, in their own right, they were in the crosshairs of winning the division. I alluded to it. Buffalo needed to win, 6 or 7 straight in order to be in that position to tie Miami and then potentially face off in the grand finale of the regular season in Miami and win that game to win the AFC EAST, which Buffalo did do. So until Miami can beat Buffalo at home, no less, I can't look at any other team and say that they're a threat to the Buffalo Bills. But you go on ESPN.com, you'd go on NFL.com, you'd read a lot of different articles about the AFC East, anywhere you want to find them. And you would see that the Buffalo Bills are being looked past due in large part to these changes that they've made to their roster. And a lot of these changes that they've made to their roster are not rebuild type changes that make this team really bad. They're not tanking, type changes. They were warranted moves to revamp the team under the NFL salary cap parameters that were working against Buffalo due to the cap space or lack thereof that they had. As well, choices that were made by the front office to move on from players that might be ultra talented but might not be the leadership type players that this team felt like that they needed. Is that really a loss? Is that an addition by subtraction, by addition? As they've replaced every player that they got rid of one way or another with a younger, cheaper, potentially better option long-term than those players that they let go of. Mitch Morse was on his last legs. Jordan Poyer was on his last legs. Micah Hyde, jury's still out. If he comes back, he's coming back to Buffalo. He's already said that, but he himself, whether he comes back this year or not, is on his last legs. He's either retiring or he's coming back to Buffalo. Keon Coleman, younger, more agile, more of a ball hawk type wideout than Gabe Davis. And I'd look at Curtis Samuel as more of the Stephon Diggs replacement, much cheaper, much better reportedly of a teammate in terms of the leadership quality. I know guys like Deion Dawkins say things about Diggs being a great leader, but if Diggs was a great leader, he'd still be on the team. I have full confidence in saying that. There was something there with Josh and him that just did not mesh well that alluded to Stephon Diggs being gone. And anyone that, looks past that, the Bills would not have embraced the dead cap hit that Stephon Diggs provided the team had it not been for his lack thereof in leadership. This wouldn't have happened. So something needed to change there. Both sides needed something to change there, and it did. Does that mean that the Bills are going to be that much worse because of it? I think it's way too early to tell. Way too early to come to that conclusion that Diggs leaving is what's going to make the Bills a really bad team. Because Stephon Diggs was as irrelevant as any pass catcher on this team from the second half of the season on. Mind you, as Buffalo switched from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady. Joe Brady's offense is about moving the football around, not locking in on one guy. And Stephon Diggs and his numbers, I should say, suffered from that. So maybe it just wasn't a fit anymore. Can we agree to that? I think we can. But as I look at this, truthfully, guys, I am stunned that a team that's won the AFC East 4 years in a row, that is bringing back the same quarterback, bringing back the same coach, bringing back the same run game from last season, which really turned it on in the second half, bringing back the majority of the same players on defense, the leadership guys that were lost. They were leadership guys, no doubt, but they were players that needed to move on in their own right, players that were on their last legs, players that were too expensive to even attempt to retain while the Bills were hamstrung in the salary cap. So to me, I still think the Buffalo Bills are the top dogs of the AFC East. I still look at Josh Allen as one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best, on any given night. And anybody that says otherwise right now, I think they're just looking for some sort of clickbait attention, which is laughable, guys. I mean, these are the networks that you rely on, These are the networks that I rely on to give us different alternative takes that have substance, but there is nothing behind these takes that have any substance or any validity to show that the AFC East could change in 24-25 when Miami's lost the amount of starters from last season on defense compared to this year, when Miami is paying Tua $35-40 million, Tyreek $35-40 million, Jalen Waddle $25-35 million. Eventually, Miami is going to run in their own salary cap hell that I don't know if they'll be able to climb out of it. It's definitely going to help. It's definitely going to hurt their ability to add to this defense that has lost quite a lot. The New York Jets, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again, they're starting all over. It's all over again. And as I mentioned, the New England Patriots are going to be the youngest team with one of the youngest coaches in the league, hitting a full reset, rebuild mode that I think is going to take them 3 to 4 years for them to be competitive. So there you have it. These are two takes that I've seen in the news cycle. These are two takes that I wanted to acknowledge, two takes that I wanted to attack, and two takes that I adamantly disagree with. There is no bit of information that shows factually that the Bills are not the favorite of the AFC East. There's nothing that has changed enough, in my opinion, to show that the Bills aren't the favorite. If there was a team in this division outside of Buffalo, let's just say if there was a team in this division outside of Buffalo that had Miami's offense and the Jets defense, then maybe they're the Miami Jets or the New York Dolphins. I don't know. But Miami Jets actually doesn't sound too bad, by the way, but New York Dolphins doesn't really make much sense. But you get my point. If there was a team that had those two variations of either side of the ball with those teams, then yeah, that team would be a bat out of hell. That team would be a problem. That team would give Buffalo fits, but there isn't. So as of now, barring any changes, maybe Brandon Ayuk goes to the New York Jets. That would throw a wrench in things. That'd be interesting. But would that even be enough? Definitely help the Jets, but would that even be enough? I don't know. I don't think so. Buffalo is still the favorite in the AFC East. Buffalo still has one of, if not the best quarterback in the National Football League. And until somebody proves otherwise, we consistently see the same thing that we've seen these last 6 years. The Buffalo Bills are going nowhere. I'm Ryan Thomas, and I say going nowhere, meaning they're going to remain contenders as long as they got this guy behind me, JA17, firing the football. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode tonight of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Of course, I got a great lineup of guests coming on the show throughout the month of August, leading into September. I cannot wait to give you the list of guests that will be on. I'm going to release the list all at once. So it'll give you guys something to look forward to. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless America, and go Bills.